History doesn't lie. 3 empires have fallen in the last 500 years, each in the exact same way. And today, the United States is quietly following the same deadly path, different centuries, different continents, different leaders. Yet the pattern never changed. Collapse doesn't start with destruction, it begins with success. We're going to uncover a 500-year-old sequence that has taken down every global superpower. And we'll show exactly where the US fits into that timeline. Some stages might shock you, some might feel uncomfortably familiar. One stage might already be happening right now. Empires don't rise by accident. They grow through wealth, military power, and influence. They collapse for predictable reasons. Spain didn't fall simply because of wars. Britain didn't crumble just because of debt. The Soviet Union didn't vanish overnight because of politics alone. All 3 followed the same path. First, explosive economic and military expansion. Then overconfidence, believing wealth is unlimited. Next, addiction relying on debt, printing money, or conquest to maintain power. Then cracks appear, subtle economic and structural weaknesses that leaders publicly deny. After that comes internal division, when society begins fighting itself. Finally, the breaking point arrives: financial shocks, technological shifts, or geopolitical defeat. And then collapse fast, irreversible, and often shocking. Those living inside the empire never recognize the pattern in real time. Warnings appear as noise, decline becomes normal. And slowly, the empire convinces itself that past success guarantees survival. It never does. Our story begins in the late 1400s, when Spain became the richest empire in the world. Fueled by gold and silver from the New World, Spain dominated trade, military, and culture for 150 years. But the richer Spain grew, the weaker its internal foundations became. Gold fueled conquest but destroyed competitiveness at home. Territory expanded, yet the economy relied more on plunder than production. Sound familiar? It should. Every empire, including the United States, hits the same trap. Wealth leads to comfort. Comfort leads to stagnation. Stagnation leads to decline. Spain was neither first nor last. It was the earliest clear example of a cycle that would repeat with Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. The United States entered this cycle around 1945. Today, it's already approaching stages that have historically marked irreversible decline. By 1500, Spain's wealth and power were unmatched. Gold poured in from the Americas. Its armies were feared. Its navy ruled the seas. People believed Spain was invincible. But that illusion of invincibility was exactly the trap that would begin its decline. Success bred overconfidence. Leaders started thinking wealth was limitless. They borrowed more to fund endless wars. Taxes soared, yet economic growth at home slowed. Industries that once produced goods for trade became dependent on plunder and imported silver. This was the first hidden warning sign. The empire was addicted. Its survival depended not on sustainable growth. It depended on continuous inflows of wealth from external sources. And when those inflows faltered, cracks became impossible to hide. By the late 1500s, Spain faced repeated financial crises. Inflation surged. The treasury was empty. Attempts to reform the system failed. The elite were comfortable and resistant to change. Meanwhile, social divisions grew. The gap between the wealthy aristocracy and the working populace widened. Corruption became rampant. The pattern repeats itself with Britain centuries later. At the height of the British Empire, the country controlled 1/4 of the world's land. Its navy dominated the seas. Its trade network was unparalleled. Yet Britain fell prey to overconfidence and addiction. Borrowing for wars in the 18th and 19th centuries became routine. Britain relied on colonial exploitation, not domestic innovation. Its industries were strong, but they became increasingly dependent on cheap labor overseas. The empire's wealth masked deep internal stresses, class tensions, political unrest, inequality. By the mid-20th century, Britain could no longer maintain its empire. Debt was crippling. Wars had exhausted resources. Social divisions had grown unmanageable. What looked like global dominance had actually sown the seeds of decline. Then came the Soviet Union, the fastest collapse in modern history. Unlike Spain or Britain, its rise was revolutionary. it was ideologically driven. The USSR industrialized at breakneck speed. It became a nuclear power. It rivaled the US globally, but internally, it relied on rigid control. Forced labor, unsustainable spending. The cracks appeared in agriculture, technology, and governance. Attempts to reform the system were too little, too late. By 1991, the Soviet Union had collapsed almost overnight. 90 years of power ended in 900 days. The speed shocked the world. But the pattern was identical to Spain and Britain: rise, overconfidence, addiction, cracks, internal division. Breaking point, collapse. Now, consider the United States. From 1945 onward, America became the unrivaled global superpower. Its economy surged, its military dominated. Its cultural influence reached every corner of the globe. Like past empires, the US entered the overconfidence phase. Leaders and citizens assumed wealth and power were permanent. Debt soared. The government began to rely on printing money and borrowing. Not sustainable growth, social divisions widened. Political polarization intensified. Infrastructure decayed, education stagnated. Trust in institutions declined. In other words, the US is now in stage 5, internal division. History shows this is the stage where societies become fragile. Small shocks of financial crisis, a pandemic, or geopolitical tension can spiral into systemic failure. Shocking parallels emerge when we compare data. National debt has skyrocketed. Wealth inequality rivals pre-revolutionary societies. Political gridlock prevents meaningful reforms. Public trust in institutions is at historic lows. This is the same pattern Spain and Britain experienced. The difference is speed. Modern economies are interconnected. Crises propagate faster. What took decades for previous empires could now happen in years. And just like the Soviet Union, a sudden breaking point could shock the world. A financial crash, technological disruption, or foreign conflict could trigger rapid decline. Yet most people believe America is different. That myth is exactly what history predicts empires believe right before they fall. What history teaches us is clear. Ignoring these signs doesn't prevent decline, it guarantees it. By understanding the 7-stage collapse pattern, we can recognize where the US is and what might come next. The real question is this: can lessons from history still be applied? Before stage 6 and stage 7 arrive, by now, the pattern is clear. Wealth and power create a dangerous illusion. Spain, Britain, and the USSR all believed they were untouchable. And history shows that untouchable empires fall faster than anyone expects. So, what happens in stage 6? Stage 6 is the breaking point. It is the moment when internal weaknesses collide with external pressures. For Spain, it was a series of costly wars, declining silver imports, and revolts in distant colonies. Spain's armies were stretched too thin, debt mounted, the economy faltered. The crown tried reforms, but resistance from the elite made them ineffective. Britain faced its own breaking point after 2 world wars drained resources. Colonial uprisings and global competition exposed cracks in its economic model. Even its powerful navy couldn't maintain global dominance indefinitely. The Soviet Union's breaking point came from internal economic stagnation. The rigid command economy couldn't compete with technology and productivity of the West. Public dissatisfaction grew. Corruption was rampant. By 1991, the collapse was sudden but predictable in hindsight. The US, too, is facing multiple pressures that hint at a breaking point. Debt is at record highs. The dollar faces increasing challenges from alternative currencies. Economic inequality fuels social unrest. Political polarization paralyzes decision-making. Global competition is rising. Meanwhile, infrastructure ages, education systems struggle. The energy transition introduces new economic pressures. History tells us that when these pressures converge, the result can be catastrophic. Even minor events can trigger cascading failures. Financial crises, political gridlock, or geopolitical tensions could act as the spark. And the consequences wouldn't be contained within borders. Global interconnectedness amplifies shocks. A US collapse would ripple across every market and nation. This brings us to a chilling insight. Modern empires collapse faster than historical ones. Technology spreads crisis in real time. Financial markets react instantly. Social media amplifies panic. Public trust erodes in hours. What took decades for Spain or Britain could happen in a few years today. Yet, despite these warning signs, the narrative remains: America is exceptional. Its institutions are strong, its economy is resilient. But history is rarely kind to myths. Exceptionalism can be the blindfold that hides the cracks. Every empire thought it was different, until it wasn't. Let's look at the internal divisions more closely. Stage 5. The current stage in the USSR is defined by political polarization, cultural fragmentation, and mistrust in leadership. Social cohesion weakens, communication breaks down. Policy-making becomes reactive instead of strategic. The gap between the ruling elite and the general populace widens. Trust in institutions falls. People lose faith that the system works for them. This fuels unrest. Small crises escalate. Protests, strikes, and social movements grow. Leaders struggle to respond. History shows that internal division magnifies the impact of external shocks. When Stage 6 arrives, it's rarely a single cause. It's the accumulation of weaknesses, magnified by chance events. Spain experienced revolts, economic decline, and military defeat simultaneously. Britain faced world wars and economic exhaustion. The USSR confronted technological lag, political stagnation, and popular dissatisfaction. The US today shows eerily similar signs: debt, political gridlock, social unrest, and overextension in foreign policy all compound risk. And yet, most citizens continue life as usual. The warning signs are there. But the perception of invincibility masks reality. This is the most dangerous phase because it lulls the society into inaction. The empire thinks it can correct course at any time. History says otherwise. Stage 7. The collapse follows if Stage 6 is not addressed effectively. The timing is unpredictable. The trigger is often sudden. The effects are rapid and far-reaching. Spain lost its dominance over decades, but the decline was irreversible. Britain ceded its empire gradually, yet the pattern of decay was clear. The USSR imploded in mere months, and the US. Modern factors: technology, interconnected economies, nuclear weapons, global markets mean the collapse could be faster and more chaotic than anything seen before. Understanding this pattern is not about fear-mongering. It is about recognizing the forces shaping history. It is about seeing beyond the illusions of stability. Because once the empire passes the breaking point, recovery is slow, costly, or impossible. The question is, can the US learn from the mistakes of Spain, Britain, and the USSR? Can it act before internal divisions and systemic weaknesses reach Stage 7? Or will history repeat itself, as it always has? By now, the pattern is unmistakable. We've seen it in Spain, in Britain, in the Soviet Union. And today, all signs point to the United States following the same path. Stage 6 is unfolding. Internal divisions, political gridlock, economic stress, and social fragmentation are all accelerating. History shows us what comes next. Stage 7. The collapse is rarely gradual. It often arrives suddenly. Spain's decline took decades but was irreversible. Britain ceded global power slowly, yet the underlying decay was clear. The Soviet Union's collapse was almost instantaneous. Modern America faces unique challenges that could accelerate the process. Globalization links markets instantly. Technology spreads shocks in real time. Financial systems are deeply interconnected. Social media amplifies panic. Misinformation spreads faster than facts. Small crises can cascade into systemic failure. A financial crash, a geopolitical conflict, or a domestic upheaval could trigger rapid, unexpected collapse. The signs are already visible. National debt is at historic highs. Public trust in institutions is at record lows. Political polarization has reached levels previously unseen in U.S. history. Wealth inequality mirrors the periods before major revolutions. Infrastructure struggles to keep pace with demand. Education systems are under pressure. Global competitors are rising. And yet, the prevailing belief remains: America is exceptional. It's the same belief every empire held at its peak. It's the belief that often precedes the fall. History teaches us that ignoring internal weaknesses is fatal. That pretending wealth and power are permanent only delays the inevitable. The US is not doomed tomorrow, but the trajectory is concerning. If Stage 5 and Stage 6 are not addressed effectively, Stage 7 could arrive faster than anyone expects. Let's look at 3 clear takeaways from this 500-year-old pattern. Takeaway 1. Wealth and power create illusions. Success does not guarantee permanence. Every empire that collapsed believed it was untouchable. Takeaway 2. Internal division is fatal. Political polarization, social fragmentation, and mistrust weaken resilience. When internal cohesion breaks down, external shocks become catastrophic. Takeaway 3. Ignoring history is dangerous. Debt, overextension, and reliance on unsustainable systems are warning signs. Empires repeat the same mistakes, often ignoring lessons from the past. These takeaways are not just historical curiosities. They are warnings for the present. The United States is already showing symptoms. Debt levels, social unrest, political paralysis, and declining global influence are all consistent with the 7-stage collapse pattern. What happens next depends on decisions made today. Will policymakers recognize the signs and act decisively? Can society rebuild trust, reform institutions, and address inequality? Or will the US continue down a path that history predicts leads to collapse? One thing is certain, the pattern is clear. The stakes are enormous. The consequences affect not just the US, but the entire world. If America falters, global markets, security, and political stability will all be impacted. History is not destiny, but it is a guide. Ignoring the lessons of Spain, Britain, and the USSR invites repetition. The difference now is speed. In a hyper-connected world, Stage 7 could arrive faster than ever before. And that is the warning few are prepared to hear. So here is the final thought. Empires rise and fall. Wealth, power, and innovation create them. Internal decay destroys them. The United States stands at a crossroads. Will it learn from history or repeat it? The answer will shape the next century. For viewers, there are 3 actions you can take. 1. Educate yourself, understand history and economic patterns. 2. Analyze systems, critically question myths of permanence and exceptionalism. 3. Prepare strategically. Personal, financial, and civic awareness matters more than ever. History is watching, and the next stage will reveal whether America can avoid the fate of empires past. Because the clock is ticking, the question is no longer if, it's when. And the choices made today will decide the outcome.